What makes Japan the favorite target of geological crises? What if the answer to the question of why Japan is so prone to earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions lies deep beneath the Earth's crust, in forces so vast and unstoppable they shaped the entire nation's existence? Let's analyze it together. Japan's position on the map isn't just a matter of geography. It's a masterclass in geological drama. Sitting on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a 40,000-kilometer-long zone of seismic activity encircling the Pacific Ocean, Japan finds itself at the epicenter of some of the most powerful natural forces on Earth. The Pacific Ring of Fire is infamous for hosting 90% of the world's earthquakes and 75% of its active volcanoes, and Japan just happens to be right in the thick of it. But what is it about this region that makes it so unstable? And why does Japan seem to bear the brunt of so many disasters? To understand this, we need to dive into the complex world of tectonic plates. Imagine the Earth's crust as a giant jigsaw puzzle made up of enormous rocky pieces, all slowly but relentlessly shifting, colliding, and grinding against each other. These immense slabs of rocks, known as tectonic plates, float on the semi-fluid mantle beneath the Earth's surface. Their movements are driven by forces deep within the planet. And while they create the continents and oceans we know today, they also unleash immense energy when they interact. Japan is located at the intersection of four of these colossal plates: the Pacific Plate, the Philippine Sea Plate, the Eurasian Plate, and the North American Plate. This unique positioning is what makes Japan one of the most geologically active places in the world. The Pacific Plate is the largest tectonic plate on Earth, and it's in constant motion, pushing westward. At Japan's eastern edge, the Pacific Plate is colliding with the North American Plate and sliding beneath it in a process known as subduction. Subduction zones are like the pressure cookers of the Earth's crust. They're areas where one plate is forced beneath another, creating immense stress and heat. This interaction along the Japan Trench, a deep oceanic fault line off the country's eastern coast, is a major source of earthquakes. When the pressure from the colliding plates builds up and finally releases, it sends shock waves through the Earth, resulting in an earthquake. Some of these earthquakes are minor, barely noticed by the people above. Others, however, unleash catastrophic energy as seen in events like the Great East Japan Earthquake of 2011. But the Pacific Plate isn't working alone. South of Japan, the Philippine Sea Plate is also on the move, subducting beneath the Eurasian Plate along yet another fault line known as the Nankai Trough. This dual subduction system, one to the east and one to the south, creates a dynamic and volatile geological environment around Japan. These constant tectonic movements mean the country experiences around 1,500 earthquakes every year, most of which are too small to feel. However, the frequency and scale of these movements make Japan one of the most earthquake-prone countries in the world. Now, let's add the Eurasian and North American plates into the mix. While these plates don't subduct under one another, their boundaries add to the complexity of Japan's tectonic puzzle. The Eurasian Plate covers much of Asia and extends under the western part of Japan, while the North American Plate underlies parts of northern Japan and extends into the Pacific. The interactions between these plates create additional faults and pressure zones that contribute to the region's seismic activity. Essentially, Japan is like a tightly packed corner in a room where four massive walls are constantly moving, pushing and grinding against each other. It's no surprise that the country often feels like it's trembling underfoot. These tectonic interactions aren't limited to earthquakes. They also fuel Japan's volcanic activity. Subduction zones don't just create stress and pressure, they also generate heat. As one plate dives beneath another, it sinks into the mantle and begins to melt due to the intense heat and pressure. This molten rock, or magma, rises to the surface, creating volcanoes. Japan is home to 111 active volcanoes, about 10% of the world's total, and this fiery legacy is a direct result of its tectonic settling. Mount Fuji, Japan's iconic snow-capped volcano, is perhaps the most famous example. Its perfectly symmetrical cone has inspired art and culture for centuries, but it's also a stark reminder of the volatile forces beneath the surface. The volcanic activity doesn't end with Mount Fuji. Across Japan, you'll find stratovolcanoes towering, cone-shaped volcanoes formed by layers of hardened lava and ash, along with smaller cinder cones and lava domes. Each of these volcanoes owes its existence to the subduction of the Pacific and the Philippine Sea plates. While eruptions aren't as frequent as earthquakes, their potential for destruction is significant. In addition to lava flows, eruptions can trigger pyroclastic flows, fast-moving currents of hot gas and volcanic matter, and massive ash clouds that can disrupt air travel and agriculture. Japan's geological features also include deep trenches and fault lines that are among the most active on the planet. The Japan Trench, for example, is a staggering 10,500 meters deep and runs parallel to the northeastern coast. This trench marks the boundary where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the North American Plate. To the south, the Nankai Trough plays a similar role, marking the boundary between the Philippine Sea Plate and the Eurasian Plate. These trenches and fault lines are not just geological curiosities. They are the epicenters of Japan's most powerful earthquakes and tsunamis. So is Japan targeted by these natural disasters? Not exactly. The country isn't a victim of some cosmic vendetta. It's simply a product of its geography. Its position at the crossroads of four tectonic plates makes it uniquely vulnerable to the Earth's most dynamic and powerful processes. While other nations along the Pacific Ring of Fire face similar risks, Japan's proximity to multiple subduction zones amplifies the frequency and intensity of its seismic and volcanic activity. Ultimately, Japan's geological setting is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it has shaped the country's dramatic landscapes, from the towering peaks of Mount Fuji to the deep ocean trenches offshore. On the other hand, it has subjected the nation to some of the most devastating natural disasters in history. Understanding these tectonic forces isn't just a lesson in Earth science. It's a window into the resilience of a nation that has learned to live with the relentless power of the planet beneath its feet. Japan's unique geography may explain why it's a hotspot for geological activity. But what about the real-life consequences of living in such a dynamic environment? This time, let's dive into the trifecta of disasters that define Japan's relationship with nature: earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. These are not isolated phenomena. They're interconnected events driven by the same tectonic forces that we explored earlier. But how does this trifecta manifest? And why does it so often lead to catastrophic outcomes? Let's break it down. First, let's tackle earthquakes, the most frequent and perhaps the most defining natural disaster in Japan. On average, Japan experiences about 1,500 earthquakes per year. The majority are small tremors that go unnoticed, but the country's history is marked by massive, devastating quakes that have shaped its culture, infrastructure, and disaster preparedness. One of the most infamous earthquakes in recent history is the Great East Japan Earthquake of 2011, a magnitude 9.1 event that struck off the coast of Tohoku region. The sheer power of this quake, one of the most powerful ever recorded, was enough to shift the Earth's axis by a few centimeters. It caused widespread destruction, triggered a massive tsunami, more on that later, and led to the Fukushima nuclear disaster, resulting in nearly 20,000 deaths. The memory of this event is deeply etched into Japan's collective consciousness, serving as a constant reminder of the power of the forces beneath their feet. But the 2011 earthquake is just one of many. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 is another tragic example, claiming over 100,000 lives and leveling much of Tokyo and Yokohama. This earthquake highlighted the vulnerability of densely populated urban areas, particularly in a time before modern building codes. Fast forward to 1995, and we see the Great Hanshin earthquake in Kobe, which killed over 6,000 people and caused extensive damage despite technological advances in construction. These events illustrate how, no matter how far technology and preparedness have come, the sheer scale of these earthquakes often outpaces human attempts to mitigate their effects. So what's behind these powerful earthquakes? The answer lies in the subduction zones surrounding Japan. As we discussed earlier, the Pacific Plate and the Philippine Sea Plate are both diving beneath the North American and Eurasian plates. These subduction zones act as massive pressure cookers, where stress builds up over time until it's released in the form of an earthquake. Think of it like bending a ruler. At first, it resists, but eventually the pressure becomes too much and it snaps. That's essentially what happens beneath Japan, except instead of a ruler, it's massive slabs of earth colliding and grinding against each other. If you think earthquakes are all there is, you got another thing coming. Japan's earthquakes often come with a dangerous sidekick: tsunamis. These massive waves are triggered when an undersea earthquake displaces a large volume of water, sending ripples across the ocean that grow into towering walls of destruction as they approach the shore. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake is a stark example of this phenomenon. The earthquake triggered tsunami waves that reached heights of up to 38 meters or 125 feet in some areas, traveling as far as 10 kilometers or 6 miles inland. Entire towns were swept away, and the human toll was staggering. The tsunami alone caused the majority of the 2011 disaster's fatalities and left a lasting scar in Japan's coastal communities. But Japan's history with tsunamis goes back much further. In 869 AD, the Jogan tsunami struck the region now known as Sendai, eerily mirroring the 2011 event in scale and devastation. Historical records and sediment analysis indicate that this ancient tsunami inundated vast areas of land, much like the modern disaster. This long history of tsunamis has made Japan acutely aware of their risks, leading to the development of advanced warning systems and extensive coastal defenses. Yet, as the 2011 event proved, even the best preparations can be overwhelmed by the sheer force of nature. Given the immense destruction caused by events like the 2011 Tohoku tsunami, what do you think is the most effective way to protect coastal communities from future disasters? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Finally, let's talk about volcanic eruptions, the third piece of Japan's natural disaster trifecta. As we've already discussed, Japan is home to 111 active volcanoes, making up about 10% of the world's total. These volcanoes are a direct result of the same subduction processes that cause earthquakes. When one tectonic plate dives beneath another, the intense heat and pressure melt rock into magma, which then rises to the surface. Over time, this magma builds up in chambers until it erupts, creating the explosive volcanic activity that Japan is known for. Japan's volcanoes come in a variety of forms, from towering stratovolcanoes like Mount Fuji to smaller cinder cones and lava domes. Stratovolcanoes in particular are famous for their symmetrical, conical shapes, but they're also among the most dangerous. When they erupt, they can produce pyroclastic flows, fast-moving avalanches of hot gas, ash, and volcanic rock, capable of obliterating everything in their path. They often release massive amounts of ash into the atmosphere, which can disrupt air travel and agriculture for weeks or even months. Historically, Japan has experienced catastrophic volcanic eruptions that rival its earthquakes and tsunamis in terms of destruction. Take, for example, the 1792 eruption of Mount Unzen, which caused Japan's deadliest volcanic disaster. The eruption triggered a massive landslide and tsunami, killing over 15,000 people. More recently, in 2014, Mount Ontake erupted unexpectedly, killing 63 hikers in what became Japan's deadliest volcanic disaster in nearly 90 years. These events serve as reminders that Japan's volcanoes, while often dormant, are anything but inactive. But it's not all bad news. Japan's volcanoes also contribute to the country's geothermal energy resources, providing a sustainable and renewable source of power. Additionally, volcanic soil is incredibly fertile, supporting agriculture in many regions. This duality, the destructive and creative power of volcanoes, is a recurring theme in Japan's geological story. Together, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions form a trifecta of natural disasters that have shaped Japan's history, culture, and identity. These events are connected by the same tectonic forces, and while their impacts vary, they all serve as reminders of the immense power of the planet. Living in Japan means living with the constant presence of these natural disasters, but it also means embracing the resilience and ingenuity required to survive and thrive in such a dynamic environment. Japan's relationship with natural disasters is not just about enduring them. It's about adapting, innovating, and thriving in the face of relentless challenges. From earthquakes to tsunamis and volcanic eruptions, the country has developed a remarkable ability to coexist with nature's fury. But how does Japan manage to live with such constant threats? The answer lies in its advanced disaster preparedness strategies, cultural resilience, and the lessons learned from centuries of experience. One of the most striking aspects of Japan's approach to natural disasters is its disaster prevention technology. Japan has invested heavily in cutting-edge systems designed to mitigate the impact of earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. For example, the country's earthquake early warning system is one of the most advanced in the world. Using a network of over 1,000 seismic sensors, the system can detect the first signs of an earthquake and send alerts to millions of people within seconds. These warnings give residents precious time to take cover, stop trains, and shut down industrial operations, potentially saving countless lives. In addition to early warning systems, Japan has also developed innovative infrastructure to withstand natural disasters. Buildings in Japan are constructed with some of the most stringent earthquake-resistant standards in the world. Skyscrapers in cities like Tokyo and Osaka are equipped with shock-absorbing foundations and advanced dampening systems that allow them to sway rather than collapse during an earthquake. Coastal areas, meanwhile, are protected by massive seawalls designed to reduce the impact of tsunamis. While these defenses are not foolproof, they demonstrate Japan's commitment to minimizing the damage caused by natural disasters. But technology is only part of the equation. Japan's cultural approach to disaster preparedness is equally important. From a young age, Japanese citizens are taught how to respond to emergencies. Schools regularly hold earthquakes and tsunami drills, ensuring that children know exactly what to do when disaster strikes. Communities also participate in disaster preparedness exercises, fostering a sense of collective responsibility and resilience. This cultural emphasis on readiness has been shaped by Japan's long history of natural disasters. From the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 to the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. Japan's ability to adapt to its environment is also evident in its agriculture and urban planning. Traditional Japanese buildings, such as wooden temples and shrines, were designed with earthquakes in mind. Their flexible wooden frames can absorb seismic energy, reducing the risk of collapse. Modern architecture has built on these principles, combining traditional techniques with advanced materials and engineering. For example, many modern buildings are designed to float on their foundations, allowing them to move independently of the ground during an earthquake. Another key aspect of Japan's disaster preparedness is its focus on public awareness and education. The government and private organizations work together to provide residents with information on how to prepare for and respond to natural disasters. This includes distributing emergency kits, broadcasting safety instructions, and organizing community workshops. By empowering individuals with knowledge and resources, Japan ensures that its citizens are not just passive victims of natural disasters, but active participants in their own survival. Despite these efforts, Japan's vulnerability to natural disasters remains a significant challenge. The country's location on the Pacific Ring of Fire means that it will always face the risk of earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. However, Japan's proactive approach to disaster management has made it a global leader in resilience and innovation. Other countries facing similar risks have looked to Japan as a model for how to prepare for and respond to natural disasters. In the long term, Japan's geological activity is not just a source of danger, but also an opportunity. The same tectonic forces that cause earthquakes and volcanic eruptions also create geothermal energy, a renewable resource that Japan has begun to harness. Geothermal power plants tap into the heat generated by the Earth's crust, providing a sustainable source of energy that reduces reliance on fossil fuels. This is just one example of how Japan is turning its challenges into opportunities, finding ways to coexist with the forces that shape its land. Ultimately, Japan's story is one of resilience. The country's ability to adapt to its environment, innovate in the face of adversity, and learn from past disasters is a testament to the strength of its people and culture. While the risks of living in such a geologically active region are undeniable, Japan's proactive approach to disaster preparedness offers hope and inspiration to the rest of the world. If you found this deep dive into Japan's natural disasters fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. And as always, stay insanely curious.